We have a special guest here tonight, and he has received the equivalent of the Nobel Prize for environmental activism in South Africa. We have the privilege of introducing I have the privilege of introducing Jonathan Deal. If you give a warm welcome.
Hi, welcome to all of you here, and thank you for having me here. I didn't plan to speak this evening, and I don't think that we want to get off the subject of health and fracking. It's one of the many aspects that I stand up to, and in South Africa I thought maybe just a little bit of background quickly. We've kept them at bay for 2.5 years, and we're going for 3 years. Royal Dutch Shell is leading the charge in South Africa, and 3 years ago they were talking about when we start drilling, this is where we will drill, that's what we're going to do. And if it wasn't for the internet and brave people and organized groups like Damascus Citizens, in fact Damascus Citizens for Sustainability was one of the very first groups that I contacted. That graphic of the Pinedale anticline or the Wyoming of the gas fields there, I used very effectively against Shell in public meetings. And we've got to a point where they don't even have an exploration license yet. There are 3 companies, Bundu, which was a South African company, sold out very quickly to an Australian company called Sunset Energy, which sold on to a subsidiary called Challenger. We have Falcon Oil and Gas, who have sold 50% of their shareholding in South Africa to Chevron, and of course Royal Dutch Shell. Those 3 applications in South Africa spanned an area of 230,000 square kilometers, about 170,000 square miles between those 3 companies. That is the area that they would like to drill in. And just like they do in the United States, they go around telling the public and the government officials how good they are, how concerned they are that the people in South Africa don't have electricity and that the country needs revenue and that their shale gas will solve the greenhouse emissions problems. The same pillars on which it's based here in the United States. So for the last 2.5 years, I've been calling them out in public, calling them liars, writing to our government ministers in their cabinet meetings and telling the government that Shell is lying to them. And that's my job, is to get in their face. I'm not a scientist and I'm not an attorney, which gives me quite a lot of latitude in terms of the things that I say. So I wish they would sue me because we could use the publicity. This fight and the campaign brought me over to the United States by the generosity of the Goldman family and a family trust that was set up in 1984 and which has issued an environmental prize to 6 activists globally on each of 6 continents once a year. And it's taken quite seriously in the environmental community. What it's done for me is it's allowed our campaign to shift gears. And in November last year, I was feeling very dispirited after just on 2 years of fighting. And many of you that are at grassroots level will know the feeling. You have the peaks and valleys and ups and downs, and every time you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, Shell are still there, like a great big amoeba, like a big growing tidal wave. They're ever present, omnipresent. And the call from the Goldman Prize Foundation came just at the right time, and it gave me a lot of encouragement. I had to keep it secret until the 15th of April when it was released. But what it did was it opened doors here, and I knew it was a global fight, but I didn't know how much of a global fight it was. And when I came across to the United States and started participating in that prize ceremony, because they take us around between San Francisco and Washington for 2 weeks, and they put on a big function at the San Francisco Opera House for about 3,500 people. They take us across the road to the City Hall, and 2,000 of the 3,500 stay behind to come and greet the prize winners. And the inspiration of having those ordinary people come and shake your hand and say thank you and keep on going, and we like your message and we want you to come and talk in the US as well, was an enormous inspiration. It opens doors, I think, at really high level, and I'm not naive enough to think that those open doors or the courtesy of being received will change a lot. But nevertheless, it lends a lot of credibility to the prize. I had the privilege of meeting your president last week, and senior people in EPA and government. There's a senator who I've known for a very short while, but I already love her to bits, Senator Pavley from Sacramento in California, and she has got permission for me to go to California in 10 days' time and tell my story in front of the Senate and the governor of California, and hopefully try and influence some of the decisions that might be taken around the Monterey Shale there. So it's a global issue, and I don't think that from an activist point of view, and what we've seen tonight is one element of this opposition, one element of this campaign, I don't think that we can beat it country by country. I think it needs to be a global alliance that Thank you. I think it needs to be a global alliance that belongs to everybody and belongs to nobody. I've watched too many people try and set up global alliances between France and Ireland and Australia and Poland and England and some organizations in the US, and you cannot hammer square pegs into round holes. There are established organizations that have charters, identities, ways of working, and what is necessary is a platform that allows people to cooperate right around the world. We have a little town in the Northern Cape, which is one of the areas that is eyed for by the fracking companies, called Williston, and there's a small town in North Dakota called Williston. And I draw that parallel because I want to illustrate how the Global Alliance could work. I would like somebody in Williston, North Dakota, to be able to say to their county supervisor, who might be trying to push something under the rug in terms of fracking legislation, you might think that this is going to be hidden or that you're going to get it through without resistance. But I'm promising you, on the strength of this global alliance of which we are a part, that your name and this decision and this town is going to be in the global news in 36 hours and be able to make it happen. And I want that to be able to happen in South Africa too. That is the only way that we will get the attention of the oil companies and the politicians, is in the media and at their soft underbelly. We cannot fight them on financial terms. So that's what I'd like to leave with you. I'm very keen to work at this alliance. I've crafted a document which I think can be signed by anybody from any individual to the largest organizations. It accommodates everybody. There's room for a Greenpeace, there's room for an environmental organization right on the other side of the scale, because it's an alliance idea that fits everybody. But we really need to work at it. I'm coming back here in August. I've been invited to attend a course on environmental economics at Stanford, and I intend to spend quite a bit of time in New York and Pennsylvania. And this is not about me. The money from the prize, by the way, which is $150,000, I have instructed the Goldman Foundation to pay it directly into the trust account of Treasure Karoo Action Group, which I represent. So there are people in our organization, just like in yours, and if the oil industry had any idea of how small it is, they'd be quite heartened, who have worked for years without a salary, qualified people, and for the first time in 2 years, some of them are getting a modest stipend. And I'm grateful to the Goldmans and to America for the opportunities that have been presented by this, and to you for allowing me to say hello tonight. Thank you.
I'd also like to ask if there are any public officials here tonight. Is there anybody that is on a planning board, a city council, county legislator? This is one of the most amazing things I've seen as I've traveled around the state in asking that question. Very rarely do we get elected officials here. So I think it's indicative of what we also must consider doing is running our own and no longer avoiding those responsibilities that we need to take our government back. I work with a lot of organizations that are of the opinion that the only way we're going to stop this is to say no. And as you may know, there were several of us that were arrested recently over in Watkins Glen area who are saying no, and we hope to see that level of resistance grow in New York as well in other states, as I think putting our bodies, those of us who choose to do that, on the line is a necessary component of this. I'd also like to thank our techies here tonight. John, would you stand? And you've been an essential part of putting this together. And the man who's already standing over here, Chris McConkey, who is a veteran. And I'm sorry I don't know all the other videographers back here except Vera Scroggins from down in Pennsylvania. And Craig Stevens, also from Pennsylvania, who's an NRA member and a go-getter who says no.